We're used to things becoming 2 to 3 times better in 20 years, not 25 times better in 2 years. And then they were talking about ChatGPT6 being 25 times better than that. So then I was like, that's 600 times. We haven't lived through a period in our lives of exponential growth in technology.
It's so crazy you say that because I was in LA yesterday and I called for some toothpaste. And I was like, can you have it come up fast? And a robot bought it up.
No way. I can't believe you didn't get lotion.
I bought lotion on the way there.
All right, we're back to Business Untitled. The Wolfpack, third week in a row. Man, we like each other. And we're talking about shopping. I said I'm a quick shopper. I go in, bang, bang, bing, I'm out of there.
I'm a quick shopper too, though.
Dave's a meanderer.
I'll tell you guys a funny story about shopping.
Yeah.
But are you a quick shopper?
I'm a blitzkrieg shopper. Yeah, I am. I'm a quick shopper.
All right.
So
I don't shop that much.
Quick story. Has nothing to do with nothing, but it has to do with shopping. So Saint Laurent sent a bunch of shit to my house to wear to the gala we went to the other night, and it's like $50,000 worth of shit. You just send it back when you're done.
Did you ask them to send it?
Yeah, obviously.
Oh, so they didn't just send it to you. You call up and say,
Yeah,
could you please send me some clothes? Because that's never happened to me.
So
I'm leaving out my house, dropping the bag to the front desk, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm like, Saint Laurent's going to come pick this up. The guy was a temp. He's like, is your name Mel Carter? I'm like, yeah. He's like, man, I follow you. Big fan, blah, 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 blah. I gave him a pound. He said, today's my last day, man. Good meeting you, man. I knew it was you. I'm like, all right, cool. Come back home now. Fucking bag is gone. So I'm like, oh, Saint Laurent must have picked it up. So I called Saint Laurent. They're like, oh, it's scheduled to be picked up tomorrow. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? So I called the super. I'm like, hey, my bag is gone. And in slow motion, I just kept seeing the guy saying, last day.
wow. Did he take it?
No. I called him. He ended up being a nice kid. Saint Laurent did pick up the bag.
Oh, man.
They just didn't
That's a
register.
funny story.
You went right to the bad side of the human psyche.
I know that was kind of
That's a lot.
fucked
No,
up.
that's a lot. I want to know, like, who do you call up at Saint Laurent and just say, send me 50 grand of clothing? That's a good life hack.
I was a good client. You know what I'm saying? For many, many years. I took Mike to Dior. We had like special whatever. Mike
I
bought
wore
a
jeans and a
$50,000
t-shirt
jacket.
until I finally made my first $1 million. You know,
I've never.
Hager knit suits and Saint Laurent 50K.
I didn't spend fucking $50K.
All right.
And I've already
So-
made my first million. So yeah.
All right. I want to kick it off with ETH. ETH's a big story right now. I want to get the lowdown. What's going on?
Yeah,
with
listen,
ETH?
the last 2 days, Ethereum's up almost 25%. That's a huge move in any market.
Does it keep going up?
Let me get to that. Listen, Bitcoin's up, Ethereum's up. What happened? The very short answer is the probability or the possibility of an Ethereum ETF, just like we had in Bitcoin, getting approved, went from really small to almost 80, 90%. And I guess the bigger question is, how did that happen? And, we talked a little bit last week about crypto getting politicized. I've always said crypto really should be apolitical. It should be bipartisan, right? It's a technology. We shouldn't make political arguments around technologies, how they get used maybe, but not the technologies themselves. And crypto's really interesting in that Bitcoin, it's about freedom, it's about individual autonomy, and so that plays to kind of the libertarian right. But the rest of crypto is about cutting out the middleman, which plays to the progressive left. And so, quite frankly, it should sit in the middle. And it hasn't been in the last few years. There's a senator from Massachusetts and a few other people in the Democratic side who have been very anti-crypto. And so we talked last week that Donald Trump had said, ex-president, I'm the crypto president. He noticed the weakness in the Democrats. And all of a sudden, there was a litany of commentators from Mark Cuban, myself, plenty of people saying, this is crazy. The Democrats are going to lose tons of votes because, as I said last week, there are more crypto owners than dog owners. And what happened since last week? The Democrats reacted. And first in Congress,
What happened in Congress?
there was a vote over a thing called SAB 121. It was a accounting bill, very arcane, and Biden had said he was going to veto it. And all of a sudden, 9 senators from the Democratic side flipped over. Cory Booker, Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, the New York power base, said, no, like, we can't be anti-crypto. And so it passed. It passed the Congress, it passed the Senate. Now it's going to the president's desk. We'll see if he vetoes it. And so that was a big victory, made crypto prices go up some. I felt great about it. And so the crypto community and the market thought maybe a 15% chance of it getting done. And all of a sudden, like a bolt of lightning, now it's a 75, 80% chance of getting done.
Right.
And so that the initial move is you got to buy. So prices go up. The bigger picture is, are we seeing a major thaw in the democratic gridlock of crypto politics?
Right.
And it feels like we are to me.
Okay. So that's really interesting. I want to just recap for that one for 1 second, right? Because ETF, an exchange traded fund, right? It was big news when that happened with Bitcoin back a bunch of months ago in January or whenever it was. And so the simplistic answer in a sense is that Ethereum right now is being considered and handicapped for the same victory, and that's important because it puts more money flows into the system, right? More demand, same supply, higher prices. But you say there's really a bigger thing going on, right? Which is the thaw politically, in a sense, where crypto being so polarized, it's starting to thaw a little bit and become, if not more bipartisan, people are starting to temper on that.
Well, that's what we're all praying. I said a Hail Mary and an Our Father last night that this stuff keeps making positive progress.
Yeah.
So, like, let's talk about SAB 121. If indeed it gets reversed, which is what the House and the Senate have asked for, and if Biden doesn't veto it, that's going to allow banks like the Bank of New York, 240-year-old Bank of New York. I was just at the birthday party. Biggest custodian in the world to start custodying crypto.
Yep.
State Street Bank. So the big, giant TradeFi banks will be able to get into crypto. Why is that important? Is because for a lot of people, that'll make me feel safer.
Yeah.
It's ironic because crypto was about getting away from the big banks, but these things are always complicated transitions. And so right now, the laws have kept most TradeFi banks out.
Yeah.
And if you start changing them, there's a law getting voted on tomorrow about who regulates crypto, the SEC, the CFTC, and what constitutes a security. If that gets passed, and I don't think it will this term, but it will next term, that's going to allow the Goldman Sachses of the world to feel much more comfortable participating in the market.
Right.
And so as you bring in the big institutions, you're just going to bring more money into space.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, right? There's a lot of, we talk about crypto. There's, for most people, so many different coins, altcoins, meme coins, right? Of course, there's Bitcoin, Ethereum. Everybody knows that pretty much. But why don't you just break it down for 1 second? I know we do this sometimes, but you'd be surprised how many people, right? Like the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. We don't even have to go into the difference. Talk about Ethereum's fundamental properties and why it's important, because I think it's important to know that.
Why this is really kind of, in some ways, more important than the Bitcoin ETF. So Bitcoin is perceived to be and functions as digital gold. It's a store of value. Its purpose is to store value, and it does a brilliant job at that purpose. The story of Ethereum is really decentralized compute, right? The base layer of trust that other things will be built on, and so it's not only a different narrative, a different story, but it's a different technology in that Bitcoin uses what's called proof of work, these highly energy-intensive mining rigs to validate its blockchain. Ethereum and most other cryptos use something called proof of stake. And it's less energy-intensive, but it's a whole different way of thinking about crypto. After Ethereum, there are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 other projects that are going to say, hey, I look a lot like Ethereum, and I should have my own ETF. Solana will probably be the next one. And it'll be a run for the institutional money as these guys each tell their story and try to get some portion of that wallet.
Right. And essentially, the quest would be to become the base building layer for many applications, right? That's effectively what Ethereum wants to become.
What blockchains are big, giant databases, and they are shared databases. And they're shared and they're authenticated, i.e. validated, and they're immutable. You can't change them. And so there are lots of different type databases, some faster twitch and less safe for maybe gaming, some really, really safe. And so there's not going to be one ring to rule them all. There's going to be a patchwork of databases. But Ethereum is really pushing because it was the second crypto. It is by far the largest developer group to be one of the key pieces of architecture.
It's a database, right? It also has a smart contract language, right? So in a sense, it's a database and almost like a protocol,
Well,
right, for building on? Or how would you describe it?
All blockchains are databases.
Yeah.
And what differentiated Ethereum from Bitcoin was the idea of a smart contract. So it had made it so much easier to link into this database and to build on top of the database. Now there are databases, there are tremendous amounts of level 2, level 3, other level 1.
Explain what a level 1, level 2, level 3 is, because even that's a fundamental concept, right, Mel?
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
So go slow through level 1, level 2, level
Well, so
3.
it's literally, if you're the level 1 database, you're the base layer, right? And so you're providing data. I can then build a database on top of your database that might be less secure and faster, and then every once in a while secure it to your database. And so this is, I mean, it gets very complicated and technical, but it's how do we move around and secure data in a world where everything is going to bits, right? If you think about data, it's zeros and ones, and you're moving into this world where everything is turning into data. And so if you believe in this future idea, when computers are talking to computers, and we're not even talking to them, they can't talk through dollar bills. They're going to talk through digital currencies, through transferring, data all around the world at lightning speed. And so crypto wants to do that and build this web of a database that sits outside of governments and companies and is shared and is immutable. And that's a radical idea.
I mean, in general, I would say the regulatory thought is a great thing because it's probably unrealistic. It is unrealistic to think that crypto is going to exist in a completely non-regulated universe. I mean, effectively, that was the dream in the beginning. But governments are governments. They're going to regulate it. So let's get rational, decent regulation in place, right?
Listen,
and then that's going to explode the crypto
It is
industry.
such a complicated question on when in a technology's development you want to bring in regulation, right? One of the wonderful things about the internet is it was pretty unregulated, and it grew like crazy. Who knows if you regulated it really aggressively early? And so there's a big debate right now with AI.
Yep.
I was out at the Koch brothers philanthropy forum a few months ago, and the Koch brothers famously are a low regulation, anti-regulation organization. And talking about AI, they were like, we don't want to kill AI we don't even know what it's going to do yet with too much regulation, so let it grow first, was kind of the ethos there. AI is complicated. Some of the smartest people I know don't really understand it. And so it really is scary in some ways because it has the potential to grow faster than almost anything we have seen.
And that's kind of what Elon was saying, right? And crypto is different to regulate, right? Because crypto, you could, I guess other than Bitcoin, somebody's responsible for it. But AI, there's a possibility that how do you regulate AI if AI becomes its own thing, takes on its own life form, right?
Yeah.
It's not like a man who's pushing the
Right,
buttons.
when you get to to Hal.
Yeah. When you get to her, I mean, crypto regulation stems largely around financial manipulation.
Yeah.
That's really the basis of what they're trying to regulate in
They
crypto,
wanna
whether that's
stop-
right or
They
wrong.
want to stop money laundering. They want to stop money for bad use cases.
Yeah,
and
financial.
They want to stop fraud.
So why would you
Financial.
let?
But AI is different.
Yeah,
AI
why
is
would you
about,
let
like,
AI?
influencing? Yeah.
Saying the Koch brothers said that let's see what happens with it first, right? But it's a possibility that it grows so fast by the time you're seeing what's happening with it, you can't stop it.
Well,
That's right.
I was telling these guys beforehand, I had a fascinating week in conversation. And so stepping back, we own Galaxy owns a big data center. Sometimes you look smart, sometimes you look lucky. But anybody who bought a big data center in the last 5 years is feeling really good right now because AI uses a lot of data. You used to have people bitching about how much energy crypto uses.
You haven't heard that.
You haven't heard that anymore because it is tiny next to AI, right? Each NVIDIA chip is almost as much energy as one household in America. The big guys, Microsoft, Amazon, they're going to spend Google $300 billion a year for the next few years building data centers.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my friend, I was like, who's really an expert in this.
Yeah.
And I was like, just how many data centers? Like how much power do they need? And he's looking at 2027, 28, 29, and 30 and it's just a staggering amount.
Yep.
And so I was like, well, why? He's like, well, because they think there's going to be that much usage. And it got me thinking, ChatGPT4, with the voice just came out. It's pretty radical. It feels like that movie Her. And anyone who hasn't used it, you should download it and play with it. And you'll just spend an hour with it. And it's pretty interesting.
Is 4 now better than Perplexity?
Perplexity is a application level on top of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And so it's the power for it to learn and process is so much faster. But what freaked me out was both my friend with the data centers and another very senior guy I know said they've spent a lot of time with ChatGPT5, the next version, which is already done, and they said it's 20 to 25 times more powerful. And I started thinking,
Can you tell us some things they said about it? I'm just curious.
Well, so I was asking this question for you. Like, you have a Range Rover
Yeah.
that you bought in 2023 versus a 2000 Range Rover. How many times better is it?
3 times.
Your car versus your
Yeah,
1987 car.
Yeah.
We're used to things becoming 2 to 3 times better in 20 years.
Yeah.
Not 25 times better in 2 years. And then they were talking about ChatGPT6 being 25 times better than that. So then I was like, that's 600 times, or 400, 600, depending if.
Yeah.
So we haven't lived through a period in our lives of exponential growth in technology.
Are we even ready for that?
Let me reframe that. Let me reframe that though. If you look at physical goods, airplanes, cars, right?
Nothing's changed.
Barely anything changes. I mean, I could argue that like the Boeing 737, 800, 900, whatever it is 0 times better than the Boeing 737, 300, whatever was being made 10
Well,
years
they're
ago.
safer, they're
Maybe
fly
there's
by
avionics,
wire,
but it's
they're-
very incremental, right? If you look at technology, computers in general, semiconductors, Moore's Law, right? Moore famously, founder of Intel, declared, 50 years ago at this point in time, that computing power would double roughly every 18 months. And indeed, that has happened for 50 years. So you have seen an exponential growth. Now, ChatGPT and AI is even taking that growth and putting it on a yet faster trajectory. But if you look at the Apollo 11 space mission, right?
Yeah.
The amount of computing power that sent those rockets to the moon, you see those old pictures of those rooms and rooms and rooms of computers. They're 1,000,000 times less powerful than this iPhone, all those computers. This thing's this is millions of times more powerful than that whole room. So it is true that technology has moved, geometrically, exponentially, but this is just a new level.
This is a new level of it. So I was probing people to think, what can that look like? So I read a quote from Hariri, right, the guy that wrote *Sapiens* and *Homo Deus*, and he said, it's funny, he said, because every generation says, we won't know what the world's going to look like in 20 years. And he said, this is the only time it's true. And that was a scary thought. He said, if this stuff shows up, if they actually spend all this money and build these data centers, and we get GPT-5 and GPT-6, and the regulators don't come in and say, just stop, because it could scare people.
Yeah.
Right? There's CEOs talking about 20%, 30%, 40% unemployment as it puts people out of work. Accountants, architects.
Yeah.
But that's where a lot of regulations going to come in, right? Because we was talking earlier, you can't pump gas on your own in Jersey because they wanted to preserve jobs. So
Yeah.
the
So that'll be
government-
interesting. This is the journey to watch how fast this stuff actually starts showing up, and then what the response
Yeah,
is.
and basically Congress is largely always behind technology. They're always behind. Look at social media, right? They're still trying to catch up to social media. They're always trying to catch up at the SEC and banking. So when you have something moving this fast like AI, it's really hard if they don't get ahead of this, right? To some
And there's
degree.
no chance.
Well,
There's no chance.
I know you're saying there's no chance, but they have to try to get ahead of it a little. I think I think there's some validity to, whether it's Musk or anybody else saying, hey, take a look at this and start to put regulations in place on this.
Sam
because-
Altman, right, who is the
Interruption jar.
Sam Altman, who's the prince of AI, just fired his entire AI defense team. Kind
why?
of crazy. What?
Why?
I don't know. But they'd put this group in place to make
Right.
sure the AI doesn't go off the reservation.
Right.
Right. There was a big debate. How fast should you grow this?
So wait, that's the thing, right? I saw this thing on AI where AI turned Wi-Fi into a camera. They put a camera initially. The AI learned from it. They took away the camera, and then the AI still did what the camera did, but it was like a night vision kind of thing, right? And they couldn't stop it. So what I'm saying with regulation, yeah, you could regulate who in Jersey could fucking pump gas and can't, right?
$25.
You owe 40 for the interruption, Joe.
400.
And you just interrupted me again.
No, you're allowed to interrupt for cursing.
True.
What?
Maybe that's true, but
Yeah, maybe. All right, that was a good one.
that'll.
So, but with AI, it gets so intelligent that how are you going to regulate it? You can't regulate it, right?
Well, listen,
if it
you-
could think for itself, if there's a button to push and it could override you pushing that button.
We're not there
Listen,
yet.
we're not there yet.
No,
so there's
obviously,
still
but
an
I'm saying we could
opportunity.
get there.
Yeah, we could get there, and I think if there's one thing about technologists that I've noticed, and I've been to Singularity University, right, which is Peter Diamandis's thing with Ray Kurzweil, right, probably founder of Singularity. Singularity, right? That's the moment in time at which artificial intelligence and biological intelligence become indistinguishable. So we're not there yet. We can still tell what's artificial. No, not yet. Okay. And
Down, boy.
yeah. And what I noticed being at that conference was that community just thinks at all times technology by itself is for good. They don't ever look at the ethical aspect of it beyond that technology equals progress equals good. And I would dispute that. I would adamantly dispute that because social media has had a lot of really negative effects. Just to use an obvious example, but the tech world has no interest in regulating that. No interest in regulating that, basically. They think anything that's technological is therefore good. Oh, it cures disease, it cures this. But meanwhile, depression's up, anxiety's up. We're in a chaotic world. Democracy doesn't work anymore. And so I think it's a real valid question that people have to be aware of. Like, AI is going to move fast, really fast, like you just said. And we have to make an effort to get ahead of it.
I don't disagree with you. Listen, one of the ideas of why this has been happening, right? You've seen a power shift in the world to the West Coast. Right, to the tech. All the AI companies are in the San Francisco area, right?
Yeah.
The tech womb, of the world is 25 miles or in and around Palo Alto, San Francisco. They got something in the water, but they're all mostly led by engineers, right? And I've met lots of them, and they're wildly high IQ. There's a lot more IQ out there than EQ.
Right. That's right.
And you see it in their philanthropy, right? And we should double check this before we put it out there, but a good friend of mine who studies this stuff said the giving of the big seven,
Yeah.
philanthropic giving is 25% what it is of the Russell. So the richest companies in the world are philanthropically giving a quarter as much as the rest of the companies. Run by guys who believe tech fixes everything.
Yep.
And just think of some of these CEOs. You know, you meet them; they're on the spectrum.
I think it's more that they believe, like people believe in religion. The look, Andreessen with his tech manifesto, right? It's like they believe technology is de facto good, and I challenge that assumption because technology can be bad too. Hey, the nuclear bomb is bad. Is it bad? Is it used for bad? Well, okay, we could debate that chicken and egg thing forever.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
it is
you could
used
argue
for
that
bad.
Facebook has literally been a horrific.
But I think why that happens is literally because of what he's saying. He has a high IQ, right? But he also has a very, very high EQ. And I think a lot of these guys that I've seen that we spoke about this with
It's just
doesn't have
interesting
a
to
high
think
EQ.
about because you look at and I don't want to name names because I know these guys and they would punch me in the jaw.
No, don't.
And some become philanthropic later in life. It's just interesting, a society ruled by engineers versus society ruled by people that are
Statesmen,
statesmen.
liberal arts,
Yeah.
the
Renaissance man.
philosophers, Renaissance
Actually,
man.
never thought of that before. You just said it.
Yeah, that's
makes
I think
perfect sense.
that's the point right there, right? Like, where's the philosopher, the ethics, the morals, the deep Eastern, Western, whatever culture values.
So we should
that show up in this.
We should make a commitment to do two things in the next 3 months. A, get a guest on here that really is an expert in AI, because we're dilettantes and we're working on it, and I think it's important for everyone in the audience.
You want me to text Elon?
To learn as much as they can, because this is literally one of the biggest questions that's going to face our society in the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years.
So here's the
But
question,
we should also get interruption jar. We should also get a philosopher around this stuff.
Yes.
And maybe on the same podcast, maybe on separate podcasts, because there are people that have thought a lot about this, a lot more than we have. But those would be two awesome guests.
Yes, agree.
So wait, with that same question, this is relevant to that, right? Elon, right? He's probably more brilliant than all of these guys, right? It seems that way. I don't know, whatever.
He's brilliant.
Statements
He's
like
brilliant.
that don't make sense.
Well, I said probably, I don't know.
But what does it matter?
Just listen, interruption jar.
That was an interruption. That was a comment.
Yeah, no, it's an interruption. No, but he's the one, right? He has a high IQ, right? But he's the one who said, hey, we need to slow this down because I don't know what's going to happen and it could be bad for mankind. So does that go into his EQ? Because it would benefit him just to keep going, right?
He just raised a ton of money with Grok.
Yeah.
No, I know, but largely his statement is, guys, we need to slow this down because I don't know if this is going to be good for mankind.
Yeah. Well,
So-
my
and you're saying-
opinion, I would say a few things about that. I think, one, yes, I think Elon is somebody that, agree or disagree, he is thoughtful around social issues, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes he takes very strident positions, but he's thoughtful. It's in his makeup that he's thinking about how this is changing the world and what the ethics and, et cetera, and whether you agree with them or not. Two, he was caught a little bit behind the curve in the AI race at that point in time, right? At that point in time...
Wasn't he a part in the Sam Altman?
Then they got in a fight about it, right? They got in a fight about it, and they did. They got in a fight, and so I think he was feeling a little bit like caught. But and three, it's a legitimate point, not to discredit him. I think.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know where Bill Gates stands on this, right? He's obviously got a big investment in it, okay, through Microsoft, but generally he prides himself on ethics, morals. Let's talk about world hunger. Let's talk about curing disease. What's the thought with AI? I don't know how
That's our
rational.
guess. You got to call Bill Gates.
I don't know how a rational
Call Bill
person
Gates.
cannot agree that looking at AI with, really, really severely at this point in time and figuring out some ways to, if not slow it down, but just like understand it
Elon
better.
wrote something interesting. He was talking about 2001: Space Odyssey. He said, in that movie, and most of you guys are too young to have watched it, but Dave and I grew up with it. Right? There's this supercomputer at the end. All the astronauts are dead, and it's because the computer, Hal, had this quandary. He had to deliver the astronauts, but he didn't want to. He wasn't supposed to tell them where they were going or something like that. And so, how do you deliver them without them knowing? So he killed them all. And that made sense to the computer. And so E. Allen says you can't let AI lie. And so he said all AI should get programmed so it's seeking the truth at all times. Now, whose truth?
Yeah.
You know, what is the truth?
Yeah.
Is a whole different philosophical question. But
Yeah.
it was very interesting. That
Yeah,
just
it
came
is.
out. He was tweeting that this week.
Yeah.
Again, I want to find an expert because these are such complicated questions. People have thought a lot about it, and we'll learn a lot from that.
You know what else is interesting, and I'm just going to say one thing right about it is when the self-driving cars, right? They're in San Francisco, right? It's funny how people react to that differently than to a computer program AI because they actually can process that. Wait a minute, this is like a robot driving around in my city
They
right
smashed
now.
it up. You
They
saw that.
smashed it up, right? The sneaky thing about AI is you don't see it coming, right? It's like social media in that way. You can't tell what's deep fake, what's real, what's kind of fake. AI, story of the day, right? Scarlett Johansson threatening to sue OpenAI right now because they asked her to use her voice. She says no. Now, the voice they're using
Sounds a lot like Scarlett.
A lot like Scarlett. And she's like, this sounds like my voice. And by the way, I starred in a big movie, Her, that was all about AI, right? And you asked me. And so, you know, it really is like this complicated thing of like, where's deep fake? Where's artist rights? Where's intellectual property? There's so many issues around it that are so bundled, and it needs some focus.
It's so crazy you say that because I was in LA yesterday and I called for some toothpaste. And I was like, can you have it come up fast? And a robot bought it up.
No way.
I took a video and it literally banged the door. And I was like, oh. And I opened the door and it's literally a robot there. And I was so freaked out. And this is like a robot that was like harmless. It looked like, but just like you're saying, right? Because I could see it and it was actually like a thing.
Did you
I'm
kick it?
dead.
No, but like,
How'd you not
and
tell us this? This is
it
amazing.
literally just happened. I got a video. I'll show it to you. It was crazy. I was like, and it just said bye and drove away. And I watched the entire time. I'm like, what?
It knocked on the door.
Yeah.
I can't believe you didn't get lotion.
I bought lotion on the way there.
Wait, did it say anything?
It said, hi, I'm here to deliver your toothpaste.
Did it have a name?
I can't remember. But it was just like, and I was just so freaked out because I could see it. And there's AI that's 10 times faster than this. Even using Perplexity, right? It's much faster, much better, much more knowledgeable. But seeing that slow robot come to my door, bang, and I opened and it was a robot there, I was so freaked
That's
out
wild.
that I was like, you know what? What you just said is absolutely right. So when you could see it and it's like something not normal, it freaks you out.
Yeah.
If you can't see it, it almost feels normal.
Yep.
Well, what's so interesting is when you think about running a business. So Bojangles, right? You have drive-throughs. You can now replace the person in the drive-through with AI. They're more effective. They're cheaper. And so as a businessman, you want to do that, right? You think I want to have higher margins. As an ethicist, you might say, well, it's just taking someone's job and replacing it. And so the capitalist motivation is to cut costs, make more profit.
Yeah.
It just is. And so, and across jobs, and this is where I think you might see regulation show up, is as that gets easier and easier across more and more industries, is it the right thing to do?
Yeah.
To fire you as my drive-through guy and replace him with just a computer, or to fire the maid and replace her with a little robot?
Well, devil's advocate on that, right? A lot of those jobs, at least in the early stages, are, you know, pretty crappy menial jobs,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And the second piece that, now a job's a job, you need one to survive, but the second piece of that is there's going to have to be some sort of either universal basic income, tax credit, right? Something to support that if you're cutting all the jobs. But the technologist manifesto would say, oh, but then you have all this free time. You can do what you want. You can go to the
Stevie
beach.
Cohen,
Right.
owner of the Mets, is buying golf courses because he's like, people are going to have so much more time to golf. We're going to go to a 4-day week, more golf, buy golf courses. And I was like, I don't even like golf. Like, how much golf can one guy do? But like, there's a lot of people that play video games. A lot of people are investing in video games because as we get more time, what are we going to do with it?
It also kind of asks the question, how important is a vocation, a job, a calling, a purpose to one's life, right? I mean, you can talk about sitting on a beach all day drinking pina coladas. It's like Wall-E or whatever, the movie, Wall-E, right? Where the guy's
Wall-E.
just, it's a great, you know the movie, little cartoon, sits on a boat, and anyway. But the basic premise of it is like, there is no more work anymore. Everything's just kind of fed to you. You just sit there. And so there's another complicated question around that is like, is it better off that these jobs get eliminated and then therefore you, quote, have free time? Or is that dehumanizing somebody? Because we've created a system where a lot of purpose, a lot of meaning is around your vocation, around your purpose and your work, basically.
No, this is
it's a big
when I say
question.
this transition is going to be, I was with my father who's 87, and when you're 87 and your kids are always teasing you, come on, you got to last till you're 90, 100-year birthday, and we've got 3 weddings, so we're like, Dad, you've got to make it 2 more years because you've got these 3 weddings, and it would be unfair for you to do 1 and not the other 2, and so you're giving them
what?
You're giving them incentive to stay healthy. It's hard to stay alive.
Crazy
It
conversation.
is hard to stay alive when you're old, right? You got to work out, you got to eat healthy, you got to care about it. Otherwise, you drift away, and he's way past the average age for guys that were born when he was, and so we asked Perplexity. We said, Perplexity. My dad's 87. It's a true story. I said, my dad's 87. He's in okay health. He's had some heart issues, but he works out hard. How long is he going to live? And Perplexity, of course, said, hey, he's going to make it to the average, the actual roller tables. If you're 87 and you're in okay health, you should make it to 92. That's the average. So I said, all right, Dad, 5 years. And I was telling him, you got to do these 5 years because I think we'll know a lot in 5 years on how all this stuff starts playing out. Mm-hmm. When you talk to the AI guys, in 5 years, it'll either be like, oh, self-driving cars never really are happening, or, oh shit, it all just happened. And I think literally 5 to 10 years, the world could look spectacularly different. Yeah. And I want my dad to see that.
Yeah.
I want your dad to see that.
You know, it was interesting when you were just talking about Stevie Cohn, golf courses, right? Because people are going to have more free time, right? Video games, you just mentioned those things. And I'm slightly pivoting off of AI, but sticking on it a little bit. But right, data warehouses, we just talked about it, use energy. I think it's interesting to think about like the second derivative of what happens when there's AI. Oh, more golf courses, maybe not. What's happened with data warehouses is it's taken energy use up tremendously. Utilities have like rocketed, like they have never rocketed in a long time in the last, 3 months, 6 months, and they say now that energy usage of data warehouses, which is currently about 4% of the grid, is going to go to 12% of the grid by 2030. So it's just interesting to think of every action creates like another reaction and a reaction, right? And it's kind of interesting because when things happen, you can think to yourself like, not just I wonder how that's going to affect the primary business, but what other things is that going to create demand for or lack of demand for?
Yeah, right. So when you first saw ChatGPT, a bunch of friends called up, what should you invest in? And it was NVIDIA, Microsoft, right? Those were the 2 big ones.
Yeah.
So they both worked great. But you could have made just as much money by saying, they're going to use a lot of electricity, let's buy the utility.
Yeah.
I learned something fascinating. Energy usage, power usage in America has been pretty much flat for the last 25 years. And that's with population growing and GDP growing. Mm-hmm. It's because we used better light bulbs. We were very energy conscious. And
This is United States, right?
United States, United States. We outsourced a lot of the smelters and the big heavy machinery overseas. Now they think with this AI usage, we could grow energy usage, power usage, 4 to 5% a year for the next 10 years. And so think about a market that hasn't had any new CapEx in it because it didn't need it, any new investment in it, all of a sudden going like this. And so, like I said earlier, we're lucky to own a big data center, but the data center business and things around that, how we power this new world is going to be fascinating. Nuclear, everyone's looking at, oh God, I wish I owned a nuclear plant.
Yeah, I was just at the Genius Gala last night, Liberty Science Center, shout out Liberty Science Center, Genius Gala. And one of the scientists they honored was at the Livermore Labs, and they just proved like the fusion, effectively fusion where more energy came out then went in, right? You get what I'm saying on that, right? So nuclear fission is where, like the A bomb, right, creates radioactive waste, right? You follow me on this, right?
Yeah.
So generally everything we know is nuclear is like around fission. It's around splitting atoms.
atoms.
And the really bad thing about that is you create this like nuclear waste that's super poisonous. It's like Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, right? And it's why there's so much anti-nuclear narrative, even though, you know, it's clean, it doesn't create carbon, but you have this waste issue with it, right? Fusion, you're combining 2 atoms, still releasing energy, and it's just kind of letting hydrogen into the air. But I thought it was super interesting because there's another thing that's happening in the future that could happen in the future to satisfy this energy in a way that
infinite free energy, right?
Infinite free energy, right? It's basically creating mini stars, like the sun.
Yeah.
Stars, what goes on in the middle of that is fusion, right?
Yeah.
It's atoms coming together so hard they're combining with each other instead of splitting apart. And so what this technology is doing is basically creating like mini stars that are then going to basically power plants or rockets or whatever
They give
you want.
you like a
A time frame?
yeah,
She
50
said,
years.
So it was interesting. They asked her that, and she said with the right resources. So the question was qualified like if you had the right resources dedicated and, you know, enough teams, how long until this became commercially viable? And she said 10 to 20 years was her answer.
Interesting.
But it's a huge
It'll
technology.
be a wild world.
Yeah.
So guys, we wrapped up. I lost track of how many great episodes we had. But listen, like, follow, comment, subscribe, ask us things, make fun of Mike, as always. And see you guys next week.
I have a question too. When are we doing the swear jar?
You know what? The swear jar, we got to figure that out. We'll tell you guys by the next episode. And we are going to have a live event soon. We're going to start putting that together. That is going to be huge. That's on you.
All right. Peace out.
Peace.